alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Are you craving for that special meal that will entice your taste buds and leave you with lasting thrilling memories? Look no further. Spice Island Bulenga has got your answer. Natural, fresh and delicious juice, the best meals. Don't miss our daily specials from Monday to Sunday. Pizza Wednesday, Saturday Pizza Bonanza, you buy one and take two. Come dine with us and feel the experience. We are located at Prime Shopping Center in Bulenga, Mitiana Road. For inquiries, call us on 0704111720. Spice Island, we treat your cravings. Beautiful people, you're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday right from 6 to 7.
Naku zinatwajirwa flat tummy. Tuchayambala ko kongoyo obutukwata.
Wajana ku body shaming. Speak up. Gendo ba confronting gay. Obagambe echo kyemukola si kirungi.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the alternative Digitalk mukwano gwali topic kiri wandyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
Ngati tata wange amanyira nkola n'obuvunanyizibwa nyina bungi. Era agezaako n'anyamba yambako yanda.
Naye kumukubira kumubuuzaako. Noga mama we bali kunzaala.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships?
Come and visit, call me. Simanyanga I miss you bichi. Especially embeera y'obudde sinungi.
Naye n'omuntu akwagalira mu season yabata kwagala ze nkubuulira.
Just be commenting nga topic yona gyandyagadde twogereko tujjako tujogera kwano ku the alternative Digitalk ku share enganzi the Snap Talk.
The alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Three minutes past the top of the hour of 10. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this edition of the Interface Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karohanga. We are live from Digitalk TV right here in Makindye Division, where we stream live from. I'm already seeing messages coming through. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for every day and every Saturday, trying to connect with us in each and every type of show that we give for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, so much for tuning in. It's yet an interesting and exciting conversation. The 11th of February 2023. As you know, every Saturday we host Dr. Kizza Besigye on the Interface Show, and we try to find out his perspective on how the country is going and maybe how Uganda can be better. Let's start off from what has been happening throughout this particular week. It has been an interesting week, an intriguing week in terms of all information, all news. It started off on a sad note. Over 23 people have been confirmed dead. That is in Turkey and Syria after an earthquake that ravaged that part of the world. We still stand with them, and we pray they will be better and they will try to overcome this particular challenge. Many people have been displaced in that part of the world, so we continue to send our prayers and of course our heartfelt condolences to all the families of the bereaved in that part of the world. Turkey and Syria, really saddening indeed. When we come back home, UCE results were out. That was on Thursday this particular week. There has been an improvement in the results of the students starting from last year, from 2022, then 2021 and 2023. You see that there has been a bit of an improvement, but of course there are still some challenges that are affecting the education sector. A few students were jubilating, and congratulations to them, and we hope that they will continue with their education. Remember, there are still high rates of people who do not move on from primary level to senior 4. Those that sit for senior 4, they become less than those that sit for senior 6. Those that go to university become low. So every time students continue to move on, and we see many of them dropping out. Why, and why is this happening, and what can we do about that? We shall be talking to Dr. Besigye, and he will be telling us what he thinks. Then still in this week, we started off with Tarehe Sita. The country was celebrating 42 years since they launched that particular war in 1981, what they call the protracted People's War that brought this government into power. So President Museveni was awarded a medal on that particular day, and the Medal of Katonga Star. That is the highest, achievement in the military ranks of Uganda. So President Museveni has been able to, be able to reach that particular milestone. 42 years since that campaign was started, a campaign that started by attacking Kabamba and that grew into something that is big, that has governed Uganda for the last 37 years. And of course, there is a parliamentary committee that was set to probe into the NSSF issues. We are still finding more results, more intriguing things. What is happening in the National Social Security Fund, and is the money of Ugandans safe? That is something we've talked about before, but there are still new revelations that are coming out each and every other day. So please do tune in, and you can send in your comments, messages, and I'll be reading them subsequently as we continue with the show. 6 minutes past 10 a.m. Let me welcome Dr. Kizza Besigye. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Edgar. Very good morning to all of you who have joined into the Interface program today. I hope you've had a good week, and thanks for joining in. As has been said, the week has been quite packed with many things, and good and bad. The Syria-Turkey earthquake, I think erroneously said, it's killed 23,000. These are very, very many people, and still counting, because they are still, going through the rubble. We don't know where it will stop. This was a very, very disastrous, earthquake that affected larger, in fact, earthquakes. They were 2 quakes, plus, of course, the many aftershocks, and very, very devastating. So, yes, it's, a situation that we all need to really pray for, and those who are in any position to support, indeed to actually send support to those people that desperately need the support of others. So all of you who have had challenges, I sympathize with you locally here in Uganda. And for some reason, there are many deaths that are going on. I don't know whether it is because there are those that I become aware of that are more, but it would appear that, we have so many people who are dying, not just by accidents, but even by other causes. And my sympathy goes out to all of you who have lost dear ones and who have got people in hospitals. I know how it feels. I've had somebody in the hospital in the last 2 weeks in Mulago, and I know how trying it is. So my sympathies go to all of you who have all those challenges, and of course those who are having better times. We thank the Lord for your good time that you are having. Yeah, so welcome to this program, and we hope you'll be sending in your feedback, which we very much appreciate.
All right. They're already sending in feedback, our viewers. I already have Obed Turiahabwe. He thanks my president for the good work. A very good morning to you, Doctor. Jeremiah says he's watching live. There is Mataka Wilson says he's grateful for the show. Then there is Busi Desko, Tuli Kubizinga, Federal System. Keep sending in these particular messages. I'll be reading them subsequently as we continue with this particular program. Doctor, I would like us to first start off with the UCE results that were released, that was on Thursday, by the Ministry of Education and Sports. And this particular campaign, over 340,000 students were registered to take part in these particular examinations. Over 45,000 of them got first grade, and when you look at the entire results, most of them have been there has been a total improvement. There has been some type of improvement, at least by 1%. Students who are doing better in terms of the results, but though the science subjects have been disturbing the students up to today. What is your assessment of the UCE results and the general education sector today?
Well, first of all, before I even get into assessing the performances as published, I think the whole approach of how we assess and how we react to the assessments is really problematic. You know, the emphasis on grades, first of all, the type of grading, how we grade our performances, and how we emphasize that grading is problematic, because the growth of knowledge amongst young people that are in schools needs to be first of all progressive, not just emphasizing what happens in the period of 2 weeks when they are sitting for exams, which is what has attracted a lot of mischief with the exams. You know, because first of all, education is commercialized, which we shall talk about also alongside this.
Yes.
And so there is a lot of attachment to the scores that people get at school, in terms of how then the school becomes popular to attract kids that will pay more to the school. So it's a product, it's salesmanship of a product. And if you have got aggregate 4, then you advertise. In fact, I have passed by schools that have put already pictures of kids that got grade 4s on the door of the school to attract other people to come and register, so that they pay more to the school. Yet, that test really does not quite tell the story of how knowledgeable these kids are. And in fact, I would like, if there was a possibility for some researchers to undertake a research and follow up these kids that are normally in the press as having excelled, got aggregate 4, got aggregate 8 in secondary school, got straight A's in their advanced level certificate, and we should have a follow through and see how they perform in life. What is their outcome? Of course, and what is the link between these grades and their social standing? Because again, you'll find that possibly the people who get most of these grades are the socially advantaged children, and not necessarily the endowed, those endowed with gifted with capacity, greater capacity to learn. So the type of grading frankly, is problematic, and I think needs to be reviewed. And that's why, there is an education simply geared to getting those grades, not the competencies of the kids. It's the grades that are published. It's not what the kid is able to do.
But hypothetically, we are thinking that the grading is the one that shows the capacity of this child. For example, doctor, for you as a doctor.
You see, let me give you an example that maybe is an extreme. You could be an excellent kid, but during the exam time, maybe you have a misfortune. Your parents maybe died, you are depressed, your performance is going to be poor.
Yes, sir.
That is not a reflection of who you are.
It's just a moment.
It's just a moment. And as I have said, because of that, a lot of mischief has also gone on by the commercialized education to produce results. In fact, one of the suspicious things that needs really to be interrogated is what I saw in the results.
Yes, please.
If you look at the top most performing schools whose results were published,
yes,
the topmost number one is Seta High. Seta High is owned by the Minister of Education. And that Minister of Education has a number of schools. All the schools are in the top 10. So one of the schools is number 1, I think the other one is number 7, I think the other one is number 11. They are all there. Is this a coincidence that the Minister of Education, the schools of the Minister of Education are the highest performing in the country, or there is something more to it? Because as I have said, this relates to how they earn. His schools have about 5,000 children who go there and pay millions per kid. So this is something that needs to be interrogated. The type of grading, of assessment, how kids are assessed in their progress at school needs to be, I think, fundamentally reviewed.
They have actually, in the recent past, talked about it, and they're actually implementing it in
yes,
the
it needs to be
assessing
reviewed, including even the processes of education. People have been complaining about, having kids that go to school at 6 in the morning,
yes,
leaving home at 5, not coming back until 7 in the evening,
yes,
having almost no extracurricular engagements, just being grilled to produce those those grades. So education must be holistic. You need to build the whole person, not just for those grades, that you pass this, you pass that, you pass this. No, you need to have wide, broad knowledge that will then give you all the tools to navigate through life. This is why I was saying that it's critical that maybe we undertake a research on what happens to these high performers as reflected in the current assessment and how they fare in life. Having said that, I think what I have noted in these results is a number of other troubling things. One is the regional disparity, regional variations of how schools perform.
yes,
And this has been long-standing also. I don't seem to see anything towards correction of this. And this has huge impact on how we relate with each other as a country. Because the northern part of Uganda, the eastern part of Uganda and for quite some time are the poorest performing schools all over.
Yes.
And recently, indeed, there was somebody complaining that if you go, they have been saying we have put universities in the regions.
Yes.
But if you go to Gulu University, to Moni University in West Nile, you go to Busitema, Teso, I don't know, university, you'll find people from Western Uganda and from Central are the ones filling those universities, not actually the people in those regions. Why? Because the infrastructure of education is tipped against them. I've talked about the commercialized education. So to have high quality teachers, to have the kind of teaching aids that help kids perform better, one needs quite a lot of money, which those areas, because of the history of the war, that they were war ravaged, they are just recovering from those situations very, very slowly. The poverty, if you look at the poverty map in the country, they are
most poor.
That is where the greatest poverty lies. So education similarly is impacted very visibly in these results. So the highest performing area is obviously Kampala and Wakiso. But over and beyond that, you'll find schools which are excelling. In my village in Rukunjiri, you'll find schools which are in the top 20 schools. Yes. Same in other parts of the west, of central, maybe the near east around the Jinja areas and so on. But the rest of the country in the north and northeast, north and west Nile, east, it's pathetic. And that should call on all of us to worry.
Okay, my question would be, sorry for interrupting you, is that what is the effect of having these education inequalities? When you have some students who have the best education in a certain region, then others who are differentiated.
The impact is huge, as I said, because it's then spans in all opportunities that open because of education. If you are excluded from education, you are excluded from opportunities invariably. Because if they are advertising for jobs, even without discriminating you would have already been excluded. The qualifications you don't have. You don't have the skills to produce. So production, even outside the education area, productivity of those areas will be negatively impacted. And it goes on into many other things. Because of that, because they are dropping out of school, that's where you'll find the large families are found because the girls start producing children early because they are not in schools. So you find a family with 10 children with nothing to use. So it becomes a cycle, a vicious cycle of impoverishment, of lack of skills and knowledge, of lack of opportunities, lack of health, and then because the other areas are developing, then you create an imbalance that creates conflict. You know, because then people say, why are you like that when I am like this? We are in the same country. Our country provides us resources in the same way. So the conflict then will arise. And we should, unless we actively and effectively correct these imbalances, we are building a time bomb within our country. So that is another thing that I have noted from these results, the regional imbalance. Thirdly, which is obviously very familiar, is the differences, because even when you hear so many got first grades, we should ask a little more. Of those who got first grades, how many are in UPE schools?
They continue to really be some of the schools that are not performing well.
Yes. So the government schools, which, and I have said many times before that education should be a public good, should be available to all kids.
And that is what
all
UPE
kids
is
must,
doing.
which is what UPE was intended to do. So how many in those schools are performing? That is something we should interrogate within these results. And it's pathetic. Those in government schools are condemned. They are in condemned schools. That you can clearly see that from the results. USE, UPE condemned to produce very poor. Of course, occasionally you find somebody who has performed well. Maybe because that person has extra care. Maybe the parents are investing more, have capacity to invest more in educating that child or whatever. Some are even become unfortunate. They have been in private schools for most of the primary education. Towards the end, maybe they either fall out for some reason and go the other side to do exams. But you may find they were not actually, did not spend the 7 years in the UPE school. But these are extremely few and far apart. So when we hear there has been an improvement or whatever in this area, it's not within the government schools. The government, those who are in our public schools are condemned.
But Doctor, sorry, but you know this is a private sector-led economy. So that means the private sector is going to be leading in terms of everything. And then I just want you to comment on this as well.
So you are saying this is a private education-led country.
It's a fact.
Is that what we should promote? That we are a private education-led country? Is that the education system that our country deserves or requires?
You went for privatization.
Absolutely not.
As a solution.
Please don't confuse things.
Yes,
privatization of production is completely different from privatization of services.
Yes, sir.
Services, that's why they are called public services. So we tax production, whether it is by private or by public, we tax it to provide services. And the most fundamental services that the country requires is education, knowledge for the country, that you build that knowledge in all your people. So it should be a public good, number one. So whether the economy is privatized and people are producing privately, the idea is that they should contribute to the common good, to the common education. So if then there are people who are saying education should simply be privatized, that should be debated. Is that the policy? And if it's a policy of a country, that country is condemned also. to fail. Because education is the knowledge in the country is the most important resource a country has. Knowledge, and knowledge is not limited to wealth, to those who have means. You have the most poor and unable people endowed, because capacity of learning is an endowment from God. And it does not go according to your ability to make money.
Yes, yes.
In fact, last night I was seeing a girl I saw a girl on TV.
Yes.
I think from Budaka district. A girl called Jemima Kamulegea. She got 8 in 8.
Wow. From Budaka?
Yes, from Budaka. She got 8 in 8. Her mother is a maid, cannot afford to pay for her. She survived through secondary education on a bursary. Her father is mentally ill and also needing care. But here this girl is. She is one of the best in the country. If she did not get a good Samaritan to sponsor her education, she would be lost. Even now, she was saying, I don't know what next. What next? Because her mother, who is a maid, a housemaid, cannot, and she was saying her brother is diabetic. So her mother, the little she earns is to look after her diabetic brother. So, and there are so many of such endowed with the capacity to learn, no means. And we as a country don't have any process of supporting such. It's a disgrace, to find that there is somebody claiming to govern a country, wakes up every day that he's governing a country for 40 years, and you are not able to support your children, including those very gifted children that God has given to this country. There is no means. So that is a problem that the third problem that I see, the difference between the private schools and the government schools.
Before you move on, Doctor, just a quick one. According to a survey that was made last year, there is an increase in the number of UPE students. So every other year, there are more students that are being enrolled in UPE schools. So the rhetoric is, are these increasing numbers of, in fact, young parents, that was a statistic, it was saying young parents are taking most of their children to UPE-led schools or UPE schools. So, Doctor, do you mean that the future of these young children or young people that are going through UPE is, let's say, in terms of education?
Is bleak, no doubt. This is why I've said that they are condemned. They are condemned from the beginning. Their future is doomed.
And they're increasing, that is their...
Yes, they are increasing because of the increasing poverty. So nobody, even those who had children in private schools, they can no longer take them there. So they are removing them from the private schools, forced by conditions, into the private schools, well knowing that those government schools are useless, but at least they
go through the system.
Psychologically they feel that their children also are waking up and going to school, even though they know that those schools will not provide much for their education, which is also responsible for the high dropout. Those UPE schools, we saw the results the other time, from the 1.9 million that started primary one, that the greatest majority had fallen out before peace.
Every level they are falling.
Yes,
every
because there is not much to benefit. And so that is, and you see, you know, even as we interrogate all these results in education and so on, you know, the country should worry about the capture, because as I've said, education is the most important area that our country should focus on. But how is it managed? You know, if right from the policy makers, so you have the minister who is the wife of the president and generally untouchable, you know, because she cannot be supervised by the prime minister. Because she's not only Minister of Education, she's the First Lady. There is something called the First Lady. So she actually deploys the Prime Minister to go and represent her somewhere, deploys the Vice President to go and represent her. So she is the Minister of Education. What is her competencies and knowledge in education? Almost zero. Except that, you know, in old age, she did or attempted to do a degree in education, which has itself been very controversial, because in order to learn how education happens, you do it by actually being in the classrooms and having practice at education. She has never been in a classroom to practice education, though she got a degree in education. She never did any teaching practice. So she hardly knows anything about education. And that was a degree, of course, which she studied from State House. So this is a minister that has really no knowledge about education, superintending over the policy of education, and not under any supervision of anybody, because she's the First Lady also. So whether she works, whether she doesn't work, nobody can call her to order. Below her, you have these Muyingos who also own schools, which are the top performing schools. So they are business people in education. They are managing the policy, but also managing to see how their schools benefit as much.
But is that bad if someone owns a school and is also...
Of course, there is what we call the conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is terrible. You know, that you are the one making policy to benefit from.
No, I am part of the stakeholders in the education
yes,
system.
It's not, yes, you are an investor on the one hand, and on the other hand, you are the supervisor of your investment. It's a problem. and by coincidence, your investment is the top performing investment. It's a problem. So that is the education sector, the most important sector. That is how it's run. This just yesterday I was complaining about what I saw at Makerere.
Yes, please.
You know, you find at Makerere, they put the appointments committee.
Yes.
For Makerere. Who is the chairperson of the appointments committee? Not Odrek. The other son-in-law, Karujire.
It's Karujire, yes.
Karujire, the first son. So the first lady is the Minister of Education. The first son-in-law is the chairman of the appointments committee. In fact, even the University Council, I hear that the chairperson of the University Council is also a relative of the first lady. So you have the sister, the first sister. The first sister, Kajubiri, is on the Education Service Commission.
Yeah.
Is the Education Service Commission. This is how the education sector, the most important sector, is governed. Now that is terribly wrong, immoral, and must be condemned by the whole country, and everything done really by all people, especially parents, to make sure that such type of governance for our education does not exist. And you know, I shudder when I look at parents, you know, docile, just you know, not saying anything. And some, even when we say these things, they say, but that is opposition. Are there millions of kids who fall out of school without anything? Do they belong to the opposition or what? This is a national issue. This is a critical issue for our survival, even as a people. I told you that without knowledge, we are doomed, all of us, to perish. We cannot keep on living in this wonderful land called Uganda, blessed in every sense, when we are walking up and down the country with stupidity. It's not sustainable. We are going to perish. And we are promoting our own perishing by having our education governed by this, you know, ridiculous governance arrangement that we have in Uganda today. We really must do everything to change it.
Then, Doctor, one would also say, post the education system, there are very many Ugandans who have got degrees, who have got diplomas, who have got masters, but they're still unemployed. They're still not having impact in the economy, having impact in their life. And I think you've mentioned this before. You've talked about this. It feels like someone is going through that expensive education scheme, going through university, and their parents bleeding as they're trying to help their child. And after, their child seems reluctant.
That's where we started. That's what I was telling you, the type of education and the emphasis that we have built into the system of education, just grades and so on, and but not actual knowledge and competence, skills that can then be translated into production.
But some have the skills but are seated on the skills. Like there are no jobs. There's nowhere to put them.
You cannot
There's no capital.
You cannot have skills and fail to apply them. You cannot. Because part of what is skills is application of the skills themselves, and you can apply. You don't have to be employed by anybody. You can. I've told you before that the most rich people in the world dropped out of school, actually.
Yes.
Because while in school, the ideas that they were able to build in their minds were sufficient to go and produce. And it's not because they had capital. You see, if you have ideas, anybody with money will run after you. Translate his money, translate your ideas into more money. Money follows ideas, not the other way around. Ideas do not follow money. Money follows ideas. So if we build ideas, people will bring money to translate those ideas into more money. You know? And it's already happening where people have the training is that inclined. You know, look at the Kenyans and all kinds of startups that are there in Kenya. You know, this M-Pesa. The M-Pesa did not have money. He had an idea. That idea has now been turned into tons of money. Because people who had money realized that this idea is a winning idea and backed it, and it blossomed. And that's how all ideas turn into products. If you have wonderful ideas, they will turn into products.
So our young people our young people don't have ideas. And
so our education is not an education that is producing that kind of output.
Critical thinkers.
No, it's not. It's just repeating what, we are trained to regurgitate. You know, how long is River Nile? How and you read it and you answer the question. It's not to, to get your mind thinking.
Okay.
And to ask you to, you see, in most of these systems of education, what you read, okay, maybe you may be asked about it.
Yes.
But in most cases, it is only to help you sharpen your mind to answer something else not
directly.
Not related to this. You must have a thinking process.
Yes.
You must create. You must be creative in your. That is what we are not training our people to be. And this a type of education was, of course, deliberate by the colonial system, because it was only intended to facilitate
management,
colonial exploitation.
Yes, management of colonial.
It was not supposed to create people that could challenge the colonial establishment, and it has remained.
Okay.
And it recreates itself, because that's how we train our teachers, our university lecturers, and so on. It recreates itself, and we need really to sharply challenge it.
So what does this speak of Africa as a continent? Because as we speak right now, Doctor, Uganda is fourth, according to, and this is subject to fact checking, it is the fourth best area with education in Africa. Fourth. And I think Zimbabwe was first. So what does this speak of Africa as a whole? If we are fourth, and this is how we are doing.
No, what is not in doubt, certainly I don't think we are fourth.
It's subject to scrutiny.
Absolutely not. But whatever the grading we are, you see, I have said here before that,
yes, Doctor,
we have to urgently get our act together in terms of how we build knowledge and skills.
Yes, please.
Because the gap between Africa and other countries is so huge that unless we work over time and extremely creatively, we shall perish. This is what I was telling you. We shall.
Yes,
it's an existential threat. We shall cease to exist. Okay. It's the law of nature. We will not cope. You know. Yeah. In fact, most people now are almost illiterate again because of the digital gap.
Yeah.
You travel abroad, you no longer find people now to attend to you. You have to deal with the machines to find your way.
Exactly, that's where we're going.
You check yourself in, you check your luggage in.
Robots, that is where we're going.
You know, so somebody, coming from Kapchorwa, from
that one is gone.
we are totally being left isolated, and eventually, as I have said, those with the capacity will come and take over where we are.
Okay. At just 48 minutes past 10 a.m., you're still watching the Interface Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. I am still with Dr. Kizza Besigye. I would love to listen from you. What do you think about the education sector and everything we've been talking about? And Doctor, please send in your messages. I'm already seeing some here. I'll read them subsequently. But Doctor, before we leave that particular issue, government actually came out and directed schools not to increase on the tuition and school fees. But it is ironical that the schools have refused. They are continuing to have bizarre amounts of school fees.
Yes, and
talking about commercialization.
I have responded to this actually, even on this show, by saying that I support the schools entirely, the private schools. Even if they want to charge 100 million per kid, let them do. They are their schools. What we should do as a country is to focus on the building of quality public education. To the extent that we fail to build quality public education, we have no business. We have no business trying to interfere in the private education. So let's focus on building the public education. The only thing may be that we should concern ourselves in private education that I could see is setting standards. Could help in setting curriculum and standards and the levels of discipline that take place in those can be supervised. But as to the cost of private education, it should depend on the person seeking that private education. If you are able to afford the cost, you are the one just a short while ago who was talking about private sector-led. So in private sector, it is demand and supply.
It's business.
It is so. If you put a school of 10 million per term, and there are people who demand that kind of thing, you will thrive. Others who will not fit in that market, somebody will provide a school for their size of pocket. Another one will provide a school for their size of pocket and the size of services until you get to UPE and US.
Doctor, so, you're telling...
So for me, I think that the regulation of finance in the private sector education should be left to the private. Ugandans must focus on building public sector.
But that is a long-term solution.
It's not long-term. It's not a long-term.
No, when you look at how many schools has the government built over time, public schools?
These are businesses.
You realize that
these are outright businesses. Tax them. Tax them and fund public sector education.
They're already decrying high taxes.
Yes, tax them. I don't care. Tax them. Fund public sector education. Our focus must be to provide quality, accessible public education. And it's not a long-term thing. It's an immediate need that we must satisfy. We are spending trillions of shillings onto absolutely nothing. You know?
Yes, sir.
The kind of money that is stolen. You've heard the IGG saying every year these people in government steal 10 trillion. 10 trillion, that's 10,000 billion.
My word.
which are stolen every year. How many quality schools can that build? You know, that's where we should focus. And focus there urgently. The billions that are spent every day in State House, in the home of just a man and his wife.
The president.
Is so called because you cannot fulfill the demands of that name of a president when you are superintending over this kind of terrible situation, and you pass as president year in, year out, with the children having no schools, with no medicine in all health facilities in the country. All health facilities in the country have not had medicine in the last 6 months. There is absolute despair all over the country. And you say, I'm president, they are giving you a medal for what?
Medal of Katonga Star. I don't know whatever that means. Doctor, let me just read a couple of messages that are coming in here. I have Nicholas Kalisa. He says, thanks the Father of Divine Reasoning. According to me, I joined university in 2001 because of you, and with education, whereas it's a general problem in most African countries, in Uganda it's largely due to poor leadership. You can't give what you don't have. Minister of Education, then he puts question marks, he says no. Nalunkuma Grace, following from Bukama Simbi, thank you so much Nalunkuma. Shafiq Sanya says every Ugandan who supports NRM government right now deserves to die. That's a very big statement. Because at this time, when you are a Ugandan saying Muzei Paka last, then death is the solution to those people. I think you're being too radical. If not, they will spoil the coming generation. Actually, I am a victim. When I was still young, they took me to my grandparents in Chamhunga. But what hurts me so much, my grandparents told me that Museveni is like a chameleon and he can fly to London and come back in 5 hours. That means they tortured me mentally. I realized that they were lying to me when Museveni came to KIU Western Branch in Ishaka, watching live from Ishaka. Respect to all freedom fighters. Doctor, isn't this too much when someone requests for death?
Yeah, but you see, desperate situations compel people to think in desperate ways. That's the reality of life.
And they feel death is the only solution.
Why do people even kill themselves? Forget about wishing it for others. They become desperate and kill themselves.
There's a man who burnt himself.
Yes,
recently.
yes. So that is the desperation that the country has been subjected to. And that's what produces those kinds of sentiments.
Okay, I think it's time we're going for a short commercial break. But when we come back, we're going to look at the closure of the United Nations human rights offices in Uganda. Uganda says that we do not really need these offices anymore, and they say they know how to upgrade human rights, and they are upgrading and respecting human rights in the country. Many people have took to the streets. Some are showing their dissatisfaction, they are protesting. And what does this mean? Or where does this leave the activists, the opposition that has been really meted with a lot of violence in the recent times? We'll be talking about that. You can continue sending in your messages. I'll be reading them. We are at the Alternative Uganda. That is on Facebook at Digitalk TV, still on Facebook. On Twitter, we are at the Alternative UGA. Send in those messages. I'll be reading them. I am still with Dr. Kizza Besigye. This is the Interface Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. Let's go for a short commercial break. We will be right back.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Looking for a pair of shoes? Less Up Stores has a wide range of selection for unisex footwear. We have the best quality of all brands at pocket-friendly prices, and we make deliveries countrywide. Just place your order or reach us on 0772 08 0090. You can also check up at Less Up Stores on all our social media platforms. Less Up, craft your own footprints. Hello, beautiful people. You're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday, right from 6 to 7.
Naku zino twajjirwa flat tummy. Tukyayambalako ku ngoye obutukwata.
Wajja n'akubody shaminga. Speak up. Genda obakonfronting obagambe ekyo kyemukola si kirungi.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the Alternative Digitalk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic kiri wandyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
Nga nze tata wange amanyira nkola n'obuvunanyizibwa nyina bungi. Era agezaako n'anyamba yambako yanda.
Naye kumukubira kumubuuzaako. Noga mama we bali kunzaala.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships?
Come and visit me. Simanyanga I miss you bichi. especially ng'embeera y'obudde si nnungi.
Naye n'omuntu akwagalira mu season aba takwagala ze nkubuulira.
Just be commenting nga topic yona gyanjagadde twogereko tujja kuba tujogera ku the alternative Digitalk ku share enganzi the snap talk. Are you craving for that special meal that will entice your taste buds and leave you with lasting thrilling memories? Look no further. Spice Island Bulenga has got your answer. Natural, fresh and delicious juice, the best meals. Don't miss our daily specials from Monday to Sunday. Pizza Wednesday, Saturday Pizza Bonanza, you buy one and take two. Come dine with us and feel the experience. We are located at Prime Shopping Center in Bulenga, Mitiana Road. For inquiries, call us on 0704111720. Spice Island, we treat your cravings.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Yes, welcome back. It is 11 a.m. and you're still watching the Interface Show. My name is Karuhanga Edgar Matthew. I am seeing Mr. Muzora Henry. Thank you so much for watching. You're saying you're watching. Thank you so much. You can send in more comments, more questions as we delve into the second discussion as we are entering the second hour of this particular show. This particular week, the United Nations Human Rights offices in Kampala were actually locked down or closed. All they say they are no longer operating in Uganda. The government of Uganda says they will be directly working with the main headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland, and they believe that we are already a country that is respecting and protecting human rights. And many people have reacted differently, some condemning the eviction of these particular officers from Uganda, and they say that this is not right. Others are saying that they have actually not done anything in terms of, helping to reduce the human rights abuses in Uganda. For the past, I think, 10 years, police has been ranked as the biggest perpetrators of human rights violations, especially on Ugandans. But that statistic is not changing. What can be done, and maybe how can we make this particular, how can we handle this issue of the United Nations Human Rights officers being evicted from Uganda? That is where we're going to start from. Please continue sending in your messages. I'll be reading them, and the doctor will be reacting to them. Doctor, on that particular issue, the United Nations Human Rights officers are living at such a time when many people would say there has been an increase in human rights violations, especially on opposition. And you are part of the opposition in this country. You don't believe in the status quo that is happening. Where does this leave you, the eviction of the United Nations Human Rights officers?
Well, first of all, I think there is absolutely no doubt that it's an ominous sign. It's a bad sign. Because if the office was no longer needed in terms of why it was established in the first place,
Yes.
the United Nations itself would be the one anxious to close it. Because, and I know, that the United Nations has been downsizing, has been actually seriously downsizing because of challenges of funding. Member states, because the member states have their own challenges all over the world.
Yes.
Their contributions to the United Nations have been going down.
Yeah.
And so the United Nations itself has been reducing its size. You may have heard some time back when they were closing their base at Entebbe and forwarding it into Nairobi. And that is going on all over the place. All the UN agencies are downsizing. So if there was no longer need in Uganda, the United Nations would have been the very first to withdraw Uganda to reduce
the costs
on their cost. The fact that they hadn't done that means that the view of the United Nations was that there was still a high level of need to be in Uganda. The fact that they are very little resources, they were still willing to commit them here. And indeed, if Uganda was not suffering anything from the office being here, because they don't pay anything for the office. On the other hand, the office benefits Uganda's economy. They rent our premises here. They rent our services here. You know, they have people employed locally, drivers, office attendants, they create employment. They create a market. They go to the supermarkets and buy things and buy fuel and buy. So they are a positive. The presence and office is a positive impact. People lobby for these offices. They go and campaign heavily to have such an office because it comes with the benefits for the country. The other direct benefit that the office was having was funding Uganda's own Human Rights Commission.
Oh.
Yes.
and you have a problem with that particular commission?
I have a problem with the Uganda Human Rights Commission, but the UN office was supporting Uganda Human Rights Commission and supporting other human rights promotion activities in the country. In other words, they had a budget that was helping in the improvement of human rights activities in the country. So why would the country, what motivation would cause a country to refuse such an office? You know, and I have heard people asking, indeed, members of government, and all the members of government say, it is our right. Of course, it is the right of Uganda to accept or not to accept. But Ugandans are entitled to know what disadvantage was this office creating for the country.
They say that they are ready to uphold the
human
rights.
Yes, but does the presence of this office undermine your upholding of rights yourself? How does the presence of this office undermine your own ability to uphold? So Ugandans are entitled to explanation, not just say it's our mandate, we are the ones who allowed them in the first place, we can refuse to renew. Of course you can, but we are entitled to an explanation, and the explanation is not there. The real, as I have said, the country actually stands to lose money that was coming into the country, to lose the support that many areas were getting from this, the presence of this office. We stand to lose. What do we stand to gain? Can the government tell us what we stand to gain? And there is nothing. I have not heard anybody say what Uganda stands to benefit by not renewing this. You know? So it should have been only United Nations to say, we don't think that there is, you still deserve to have an office here, we are taking it away. But the fact that it is Uganda doing so, that's why I say it's an ominous sign and should worry everybody. It's an indication that they are willing to lose the benefits we were having from their presence because, although there is no benefit in doing so, because their presence was affecting them in some ways they cannot say. And those ways are clear. Any Ugandan who follows what is going on knows that in November last year, the Attorney General and his team were extremely hard pressed to answer a litany of cases of human rights abuses that are concerning the whole world in Geneva.
Yeah, we remember.
He was there, could not answer. He said some dismissive, made some general dismissive statements. He was asked to substantiate what he said. He couldn't, and there is definitely no doubt that he couldn't, because the rights over which he was being interrogated are definitely there. The abuses are definitely there. They are documented. So there is no doubt that the government feels that the documentation of abuses that lead to their exposure, as they were exposed in the to the world community as abusers, they think that this office has a role in doing that. And therefore, it must go.
but these human rights abuses have been there for a while. Some have been meted on you for a long time now,
yes,
close to 20 years.
Yes.
Why now?
So, first of all, as I have said,
yes, sir,
the pursuing of those abuses internationally has spiked. And that change in the international perception of what Uganda is doing is the one maybe you should question, because even as they were doing terrible things here, the world, the international community was less concerned. But now it has become much more concerned. There was the Foreign Relations Committee of the Senate, the United States Senate, you remember, which has been very vocal, which has written to President Biden to sanction Uganda over human rights abuses, and they have evidence on the basis of which they do so. So, whatever has raised the sensitivity of the international community, which is welcome, I think factors into what they think is feeding into that, into those networks, the abuses that are going on here. It is of course possible that previous occupants of the UN office, because they rotate them, and I also know that some become compromised, so they are here, they don't report. Maybe at some stage, others who come in and are more committed to their work and to increasing accountability on human rights in the country, they are more effective and file these reports and evidence and so on. So I do not know why there is now greater scrutiny internationally on the human rights situation in Uganda. But it's a welcome thing. And that definitely jolts the abusers. You know, many officers of the UPDF have been personally sanctioned.
Yes.
Of course, including the chief of police, Kaihura, and so on.
Abel Kandiho as well.
Yes. So it's not just recent, it's been building.
Yes.
It's been building. And so the reason for the closure of the office is definitely to avoid scrutiny. There is no doubt. It is to avoid or lessen, reduce the scrutiny that they can face. But secondly, it should also be understood that progressively the discontent, political discontent in the country has been intensifying.
Yes, please.
As the failures of government increase, the discontent increases.
Yes, Doctor.
You know, and the government will always respond, as we have seen all these years, will respond to increasing discontent with more repression, with more kiboko, more drone kidnaps, more torture, more arrests, more killings. That is what the response to increased discontent is going to be.
That what you're seeing there is how the government was reacting to protesters who are trying to protest the eviction of these officers, as you can see there.
So you can clearly see. You can see the torture that is going on somebody who is saying simply the crime of those is simply to say, please don't cross.
And he looks like he's differently abled. And
yes, he has one leg.
and that's how.
Yes, so they are going to be, or they are planning without doubt, to do much more of that, the abuses, to quell people who are protesting the lack of services, because, you know, this collapse of education, collapse of healthcare, collapse of infrastructure, with all these roads now becoming death traps and so on, you know, the collapse of all kinds of social protections, people are going to agitate and say, no, this is not on. And so they must be preparing for that.
Okay.
And that's why this office is not welcome now.
Okay. Doctor, in your submission, you said at some point they were quiet. And this is not something you've said alone. Many people have said that the international community, in most cases, has been quiet. And this has not happened for today. It has been happening for a while now. You remember what happened in Rwanda? Quiet. And that brings me to a question that, what is the impact of this particular international organization at the end of the day? It feels like there is an interest to their help, isn't it?
You see, the international system, which is the United Nations, is really important. It has its ability to sanction wrongdoers is almost nil. Even the International Criminal Court that was a useful innovation of sanctioning abusers
Yes.
has not been very helpful because of lack of authority to impose their sanctions. So even when they indict, somebody, they say, you know, you President Bashir, you should be tried for your abuses. They have no capacity to compare President Bashir to appear before court. And that's why he has never appeared there.
Exactly.
Until some states, member states, help them to do something. But they are the member states which are the abusers, and especially here in Africa. The abusers are the holders of power. So the international community, the international system itself is really impotent, has no capacity to deal with this. Now, member states who are powerful within the international community have their own interests as countries, for whose interests sometimes they compromise the international law.
Because of what they want.
Because of what they themselves want to achieve. So they can work with lawbreakers, they can work with criminals for their own interest. They can even attack those who are doing the right things for their own interest.
They can actually even work with opposition. Many have said that they are working with the opposition, with the Besigye's, the
If their interest is that aligned, yes. So what moves member state countries of the international community
Yes.
is their national interests. And most often, their national interest is not in line with the national interests of the developing countries, of the poor countries.
Of the people.
Yes, of the people in poor countries. Because their interests continue to be to exploit the poor countries. You see, that's why they had even dominated them, colonized them, dominated them. They were to exploit them. That interest has not ceased. So their interests are always, or most times, at variance. They are counter to the interests of our countries and our people. And that's why they find good company in the rogue regimes that govern most of the African countries. They become good partners, because then they can protect the rogue regimes and extract from their countries. And that's why it's within our own right and necessity.
Yes, sir.
To challenge the international community where their interests are not in line with ours. We need to challenge them.
But you need their money.
Pardon?
You need their money.
No, you see, fortunately, we must separate governments of those countries and the people of those countries. So it's not that those interests they are projecting are always supported by the people of those countries.
Yeah, I've had Americans not in line with the foreign policy of.
Absolutely. So we can actually appeal to the people of those countries to support and to oppose their government's actions here. And we need to do that. So this is why I'm saying that we ourselves must advocate for what is within our right, must do everything to align the interests of other countries and of the international system to the interests of the people of Uganda. And for now, I think we are pleased that there is increasing alignment within the international community with the interests of our people.
Okay.
And when that happens, yes, we should encourage more of that. It's not enough, certainly, because they still give funding to all kinds of, including funding the military, which is the biggest
Activities.
abuser here. They still getting funding from the Americans and all these other people. So we must continue to put pressure to ensure that, first of all, we win our own rights here. Our governments here must respect our rights and must work for our interests, not the interests of others. And that is the struggle that is going on. That is exactly the struggle that is going on. And that is why this Human Rights Office definitely must go.
Okay. So Dr. DGF left, and you know how many supporting organizations were under that umbrella. United Nations Human Rights Officers, they're leaving. There are very many useful organizations that are leaving the economy of Uganda at such a time when you are saying there is a lot of poverty, there is a lot of inflation, and where does this leave the Ugandans?
You know, it's worrying, but on the other hand, you know, for every cloud there is a silver lining, and for me, I'm not entirely worried about all these happenings.
Yes. Because
like that DGF, it was helping support many organizations. But I wonder whether those many organizations that were being funded were actually delivering to the people of Uganda what they ought to have delivered. I think the output of those organizations themselves is highly questionable. You see, the civil society organizations here really need to reflect on their role in the development of the country also. Because they are not rooted in people's
lives.
Yes, people's needs and people's aspirations and so on. Most of them have become just like civil servants, earning salaries.
But there is no impact.
But without, first of all, connection. Without connection with the people, with the actual demand on the ground. Because if there is demand on the ground, the demand on the ground itself will support you, so that the foreigners are supporting what is viable here, even without them. But when they replace the domestic demand, then we start having artificial civil society organizations entirely supported by foreign funding. And that's why if the foreign funding is withdrawn, immediately they disappear. So if that is the situation, then even you'll find that their interests, the interests of the civil society organizations, become aligned to the interests of the foreigners rather than be aligned to the interests of our own people. And the activities which are funded are determined by the funders and not necessarily the priorities of the people of Uganda. So
So it's a funder who gives you money and they direct how you're going to use that money, rather than
because they have their own priorities of funding. They say, in fact, when they put out their funding grant, they advertise their grants. They say we are going to be giving grants in the following areas.
Exactly.
So they determine the priorities, and these people who apply for those grants, therefore, adjust themselves to work in the priority areas of the foreigners. And I think that is problematic.
Okay.
And so maybe this unfortunate situation may, in the final event, help create genuine civil society actors that are rooted in the society and promoting real interests in the society, which interests can also start funding them, so that external funding is a promotion of something that is inherently viable from our own dynamics. So yes, it's obviously an indication of how jittery the regime is to scrutiny. The regime is trying to close all possible voices that are critical of what it is doing and that report on the terrible things they do. They are actively, aggressively trying to close all human rights spaces and voices.
Okay.
And it's ominous, it's all to worry us. But even as that goes on, as I have said, we may, the flip side may also be helpful, yes, and we should start seeing how to creatively recover our own voices and our own actions, even without external support. So that when external support comes, it now finds legitimate civil society voices.
Okay, Doctor, I request that I go through these particular messages. 31 minutes past 11 a.m. You're still watching the Interface. My name is Karuhanga Edgar Matthew. I am with Dr. Kizza Besigye. We're still talking about what is happening in Uganda. Now let me go to Mr. Brooke Williams Chikomeko. He says, whites are the ones controlling our countries through giving money to our leaders. Uthman Bunyayub Agamba says, we thank you for your president. We thank you for your president. I think he meant we thank you, president. We are live in Naguru. Norman says, truth be told, if the government can close such an international agency, trust me it's likely that the same dictator will close Uganda Human Rights Commission and the NGOs whose mandate is to check human rights status. That aside, the way Wagadia's commission works is as if it's closed already. Edgar Matthew, Karuhanga. Doctor.
No, I agree that Uganda Human Rights Commission is really more or less useless. I can confirm.
Yeah.
Because my rights have been abused very, very many times. I have interacted with it right from 2001 when I was being thrown off aircrafts as I tried to travel abroad.
Yeah.
I made complaints to the Uganda Human Rights Commission when my home was barricaded by the soldiers and I could not move out. In fact, the Human Rights Commission even came to my home and recorded statements while they witnessed what was going on in my home, and several other reports. Absolutely nothing. I have never had any response from the Uganda Human Rights Commission against all these abusers for which they claimed they were investigating and so on and so forth. Nothing.
They never got back
Nothing. So I have no kind words for the Uganda Human Rights Commission. I think it is actually part of the problem because it masquerades that, it is doing something, whereas not. So even when they were, interrogating the Attorney General in Geneva, he was saying how Uganda is an example of countries that have human rights bodies.
What did you want him to say, Doctor?
Yes, what I'm saying.
Because that is exactly what he had to say.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that is how unhelpful Uganda Human Rights Commission is, because it is presented as a reason why Uganda should be respected.
The good thing, when he came back to the country, he said that anybody who's caught torturing anybody, I'm not defending you anymore. I'm also tired of these cases.
Of course he will have to. So the Uganda Human Rights Commission is creates a wrong impression that there is an institution, and indeed the Constitution mandates it, gives it wide-ranging powers and mandate. But you see, the people are appointed by the abusers. So an abuser will not appoint somebody that will be active in doing that work. So the people, it's populated by those Wangadias and other people who actually are an obstacle to the mandate of the Uganda Human Rights Commission.
Okay, we're going to talk about people who are appointed, by the way, these days. NSSF, you're seeing people who are appointed are eating money in various ways. But let me first read this message. And Feroz Mwonge says, Dr. Kizza, talk about energy sector. I got shocked. A dam in Uganda costs $1 billion, and yet it was supposed to cost $250 million. You have mentioned this before.
Yes, that is Bujagali.
Yes, you have mentioned this before. Feroz says, Doctor, our education system has really gone to the sewage line. This one continues to say, I reached to a firm conclusion, just a minute. I reached to a firm conclusion that even whites don't care about human rights violations. The day ICC said soldiers were defending themselves when they killed people in Kasese after 2016. This gentleman says that he's not really in line with what the white folks are doing. He says, when our offices were raided, Norman, we also reported to Uganda Human Rights Commission. All they told us was that they have a very big backlog, and most likely our case would take ages without any attention. That's your Wangadia's commission. Shafiq says, if we Ugandans remain ignorant and stupid like this, we are in the coming years, all Ugandans, we are no more in Uganda, because there is the way I am seeing Chinese and Indians behaving in our country. It's like their own. Let's continue. Just a minute. Yeah, so we have a piece Asingwire. Despite the distractions by the greedy worshippers of the emperor, Dr. Besigye always on point. Keep the candle burning, together we shall overcome. You will always be my president. Come rain, come sunshine. This is Prince Intrepid Amos Harrell. Asimo Ismail, Baba wa Taifa, Dr. Kizza Besigye. Thank you so much for your insightful, educative debate. Mulowa Bobby says good morning, live from Buziga. Thank you so much for watching. Said Yebare says kudos, he's live from Chigali. Thank you so much for watching. Live from Dubai, Muhindo Moses. Thank you, Doctor. Muhammad Bamulanze Chi. Doctor has points. I am live from Tripoli. Watcher Fred says, watching live from Mbale. Good morning, Afande. Modesto Muhindo, he says, Kizza, well done for being so patriotic. Kasese people really love you. And greetings from Renzururu people. There is a Besigye holic. He said, I've joined in from Ginger, live with you, my CIC. To see Mire Mark said, if you are watching, choose to be for M7 or Besigye, period. We don't need anyone else come next voting. I have Kamoga Franklin, who is watching in from San Francisco, California. Thank you so much, Frank, for always watching. He says, I saw you, Doctor, at Sewanyana's prison visit. How is he? Okay, yeah, I think he wants to know how your visit was with, I think we shall end with Amanya Hamza, who says, when I see Doctor, I see a real president of Uganda because he has that patriotic heart of our country. Elas Jameson says, when I was younger and ignorant, I used to think Dr. Besigye was an enemy of the state. Until I grew up, understood who the real enemies of the state are. Ever since then, I have lived to appreciate and thank Besigye each time I see him online. He is the true patriot who we have. Be blessed, Dr. Kizza Besigye. Still more messages. Wildlife Tours, they're saying this is my president. Watcher Fred saying he's live from Mbale. Yeah, messages are still many, but Doctor, we can continue from there.
Yeah, you see, Edgar, the majority of those messages,
yes,
are lamenting about, yes, the situation. Now, to just wind up this human rights thing, yes, we have to understand that we are the ones, Ugandans are the ones who are primarily responsible for ensuring our own rights. Not somebody else. Americans, British, French, whatever, they will not be the ones to ensure that we live with our rights. Yeah. It is ourselves. They can support our bid to enjoy our rights, but they cannot replace us in demanding and ensuring our own rights.
But we feel like the people down here are waiting for them to come and help them. Have
yes,
you realized that narrative?
Either waiting for the
white folks,
foreigners, or even waiting for a few people here
for Besigye
to be the ones to do the work that will ensure their rights. What is critical for all the people who are out there following on this program is that we must assert our own rights. We must do the heavy lifting ourselves. We must subdue those who are violating our rights. It's our job. It's our duty. And that duty is spelled out very clearly in the Constitution. Article 3 of the Constitution is very clear on that it's a duty, not just a right, but a duty
to protect,
to ensure that we do away with whatever violates our rights, whatever violates our Constitution, whatever. We have a duty, and it is that duty that I am inviting all of you to perform. This is the time to do so. If we keep on dilly-dallying and time goes, I have told you we are going to lose this country forever. We don't have all the time. I've been talking about the coming oil. If this oil comes and lands in the hands of the violators of rights, getting out of that violation will be that much more difficult. So we have a small window in which we have to act to change the situation in this country. And that's why we said this year, 2023, is a very, very critical year. We have to act this year. So wherever you are, organize people who want to regain control over the country. Organize, let's coordinate, and we together say enough is enough. I have heard somebody saying, that he's waiting for me in the election. There is no election. There is no election organized by these abusers that will announce a different outcome. It will not happen. We have to liberate the institutions that manage our country.
Yes, sir.
All our institutions are captive. I have told you what is happening in education. Education is completely captured by the family. So are all these institutions. The finance, I told you the Bank of Uganda is totally captured by the first family. You've been seeing what is going on in NSSF.
Yes, it's
the money of savers.
That's appointments.
Is completely captured and money abused as they want. Yeah. So all
people are going on trips with people's money.
Yes. You had, and now they have told you openly on TV. You saw the MD saying, I gave 250 to the minister, 200 and I don't know,
board members,
400 to this.
Everybody is just getting money.
It's just they are chopping savers' money. So who will save the savers' money? It is yourselves, you the people whose money is being abused. We have to all get together to save this situation. All institutions are captured. We will not get out of this captivity by going to throw a piece of paper in a box held by the one who has captured us.
He used the same word as Museveni used, the piece of paper.
Yes, it will not change the situation. So this year, 2023, I don't want to hear anybody talking about 2026. It should be this year, 2023. Let's organize. Let's say enough is enough. Let's regain control of our country. And all it takes is all of us being organized, active, and we withdraw our obedience to these criminals that are running our state.
Okay, I have a new message here from Mr. Kizza Besigye. He says, greetings to you, Dr. Besigye. True, the Western countries are hypocrites. They continue to recognize and support the dictator, contrary to the common values. Then this one is saying, Doctor, why is Chinese language going to be compulsory in our schools? This one says, whites only take our resources and they use the forces of dictators. To get the change we need, all Ugandans must march urgently, participate in the struggle. Keep sending in those particular messages. Doctor will be reacting to one of those. I think many of them are agreeing with you, Doctor, in terms of the impotence of some of these international bodies. I think, yes, you can keep sending in more messages. I'll be reading them subsequently as we continue with the program. Doctor, there is a gentleman who mentioned, is there something you want to comment on that before we continue? Because this gentleman asked you to talk about how Sewanyana and Segirinya are.
Yes, we're glad to hear that Kizza Besigye is there following what is still going on here.
Yes.
Nice to hear from you, and I wish you all the best in the terrible winter that you have been forced to live in. And of course, we were talking about human rights abuses here earlier. Kizza is a perfect example of how the state itself is the abuser of human rights, because nobody can deny that he was arrested by the state.
Yes.
That he was arrested.
We saw everything as it unfolded.
Yes, that he was arrested when he had no torture marks that are now visible for everybody.
Yes.
And that whoever tortured him has never been brought to book.
Yes.
So it's, you hear them, including the Attorney General, was saying, whoever abuses rights, we sanction them. They are individuals.
Charge them as individuals.
Yes, they are individuals, and no individual has ever been charged for torturing Kakwenza and many people, many people like Kakwenza. So it's not individuals. It is the junta. It is the system overseen by Mr. Museveni that tortures people. Mr. Museveni must take responsibility for the torture that goes on in the country, for the killings, for the dehumanization that is going on in the country.
Yes, sir.
Well, bravo to hear from you, Kakwenza. I also want to briefly respond to the one who was complaining about Chinese. I think if we can teach Chinese, it's a great thing. You see, we must learn to communicate beyond our borders very effectively. That is, it's a competence that will help us to navigate, to maneuver in competing in the world. Because let's not forget that every 1 in 5 people on earth is a Chinese. Yes, 1 in every 5 people is a Chinese. So we do well to learn
their language,
to communicate with 20% of the entire population on earth. But we should also promote our own languages, and I am a very active advocate of teaching our own languages. And especially here, people should learn Luganda, but we should learn more especially Kiswahili, because we can speak Kiswahili in a very large area of Africa. Congo, Burundi, Rwanda, Tanzania, Kenya, all the way to northern Zambia and what, you know, you can speak Kiswahili. And so people should learn Kiswahili to help us communicate in the whole region. If you are saying we want regional integration, a critical element of regional integration is speaking the same language. Back to Sewanyana, Honorable Alan Sewanyana, whom I went to visit. Yes. And I went specifically to visit Honorable Sewanyana, though of course I am aware that he's in prison with Honorable Muhammad Segirinya. So I was visiting both, but my more pointed need was to see Sewanyana because he has been unwell from last year. He's been quite unwell. He was referred from Kigo prison to Maction Bay, eventually from Maction Bay to Mulago Hospital, and he was eventually returned to the prison. And I was getting reports that he continues to be unwell. And I wanted to visit him, first of all, of course, as a colleague in the struggle, but also as someone who has medical training and can give advice on the best approach to manage the situation, even if I am not practicing and able to help at a personal level, but I could give advice. And that's why I visited Kigo prison on Wednesday. I went with Mrs. Sewanyana, Lydia, and we were received at the prison all right, but unfortunately I was not able to see the Honorable Sewanyana because the OC of the prison said that Sewanyana does not want to see visitors. that it is his decision and he can't force him to see visitors. But I was able to see, I asked for and was able to see Segirinya, and Segirinya said that that was not true, that Sewanyana
Could refuse.
was refusing to see visitors, but he said that he's unable to walk. So the only way he could come to where we were would be if the prison's authorities were able to lift him and bring him where we were. Or if they allowed me to go to the sick bay where he is hospitalized within Kigo prison. And I think that's what they didn't want to do. They didn't want either to bring him out of the sick bay, carrying him, and they didn't, I think, want me to go to where he was in the sick bay to see him and assess, make my professional assessment also, and talk about what I have seen. I think they didn't want that to happen, which is unfortunate.
Did the wife see him?
Yes, the wife was taken in after, we, of course, insisted. But the wife, again, has been visiting him even when he was in Mulago, when he was in Maction Bay. Yeah. So she wouldn't add anything new. The reason I was going myself was that I also have a trained eye.
Yes.
and could...
You may be able to tell us.
Yes, and could make an assessment that I could talk about.
Yeah.
I think that's what was being denied. It's unfortunate. While there, I met and talked to another doctor who had come to see him, who is based at Maction Bay, and is a psychiatrist. And he told me the reason he had come to see Alan was because the prison's authorities thought that he was now having a mental illness that needed to be assessed. And so he was there to assess his mental health together with a psychologist. They were two. He introduced another one as a psychologist, that he himself was a psychiatrist. And that was the first time they were visiting him. He said they will need several sessions with him in order to make
complete diagnosis,
to make an evaluation of what the situation was. And so very clearly he still has his main complaint, according to his wife, and also according to Segirinya, is chest. It was also the chest pain that he complains of that eventually led to his going to Mulago. Okay. He still has a complaint of pain in his chest. He can't walk. He's very weak. He can't walk. So that's why he has to be lifted. He had problems of eating. I understand it has improved somewhat. But he's clearly in a situation that requires, an evaluation of his health outside prison.
As you conclude, doctor, because we are running out of time.
Yes, so it's very, very sad that 1 year and a half since they were arrested, they have never been tried. They have never been given a bail.
The good thing the Chief Justice came out to actually condemn this and says he's going to oversee.
Well, that is not good enough. You know, it needs to be institutional. You know, it's 1 year and a half. Really the urgent thing is that I think in situations like that, and it pains me, and the reason I am personally concerned is that my brother died in similar circumstances, having been held in prison for over 3 years without trial. And he eventually became sick and couldn't be given bail until it was too late, and he died. I think we all have reason to worry about the health of Honorable Sewanyana and Segirinya, and we really appeal to the judicial system to grant them bail.
Yes, Doctor.
And they can still be tried while they are coming from outside and accessing professional health care of their choice.
All right, Doctor, your parting shots in just a minute.
Well, I didn't know time had flown so fast. It's always a great pleasure to be here on Saturday and to interact with all of you out there on the situations as we see them in our country. Talking is the beginning of finding solutions, and that's why we keep on talking. But ultimately, it will take the actions of all of us to deal with the issues that we talk about. I am always ready and prepared to do my bit, and I will continue doing my bit until our country is one in which we can be proud. And all of us live as equal citizens enjoying equal opportunities. I wish you a great weekend, and may God continue to bless all of you.
Amen. Always a privilege having you, Doctor, on the show. This is Rock Ngwenya. He says, Doctor, give him a chance to speak so that we can take it on record for tomorrow reference. Thank you, sir. I've given Doctor all the time, and I think, unfortunately, we've come to the end of this particular discussion. It was a privilege having you on the show from 10 a.m. up to midday. It's 1 minute past midday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we are going to be having the Snap Talk show, and that is hosted by Teddy Tenjo Nabukera. It's the girls. You can tune in at exactly 6 p.m. They will be talking about issues of family and, of course, issues of relationships in that particular regard. Thank you so much. Please do follow us on our social media platforms. That is at The Alternative Uganda, at Digitalk TV on Facebook, at The Alternative Uganda on YouTube, at The Alternative UGA on Twitter. It's always a privilege. You can still follow me personally. That is on Facebook at Edgar M. Karuhanga. On Twitter at Edgar M. Karuhanga. You can follow me and I'll be able to follow you back. Brooke Williams is still sending in messages. Museveni and Besigye, they are good at wasting people's time. I don't know why you're saying this. Then Brooke Williams, thanks for the show. Thank you as well. Guys, we've come to the end of this discussion. See you next Saturday. The interface will be here, hosted by Mr. Mukose Arnold Anthony. That will be the Luganda version. And I'll be coming back later on to talk on this show, speak in the English version. So guys, thank you so much. See you tomorrow, or today in fact, 6 p.m. a Snap Talk show. Please do tune in. My name is Edgar. Good afternoon, Uganda.
Looking for a pair of shoes? Les Hub Stores has a wide range of selection for unisex footwear. We have the best quality of all brands at pocket-friendly prices, and we make deliveries countrywide. Just place your order or reach us on 0772 08 0090. You can also check up at Less Up stores on all our social media platforms. Less Up, craft your own footprints. Hello, beautiful people. You're welcome to the Snap Talk with your girl Teddy Tenjo every Saturday, right from 6 to 7.
Naku zino twajjirwa flat tummy. Tukyayambalako ku ngoye obutukwata.
Wajana ku body shaming. Speak up. Gendo ba confronting. Obagambe ekyo kyemukola si kirungi.
Towerabira nti tuli wano ku the alternative Digitalk. Mukwano gwange gwali topic kiri wandyagadde twogereko. Is it about family?
Nga tata wange amanyi era nkola n'obuvunanyizibwa nyina bungi. Era agezaako n'anyamba yambako yanda.
Naye kumukubira kumubuuzaako. Noga mama we bali kunzaala.
Is it outside family? Is it society? Oh, could it be relationships?
Come and visit, call me. Simanyanga I miss you bichi. Especially embeera y'obudde si nnungi.
Naye n'omuntu akwagalira mu season yaba takwagala ze nkubuulira.
Just be commenting nga topic yonna gyandyagadde twogereko tujjako tujogera ku the alternative Digitalk ku share enganzi the Snap Talk.
The alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.